Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Meredith Lego, and I am doing a series of videos on Ascension science. Much of the content that I am getting to support the videos is content that I've channeled from an ascended master named Hilarion. And Hilarion is a being who basically has sort of moved beyond the need to incarnate, and I've been able to connect with him in order to basically, uh, channel or basically ask and receive lessons on how that occurs, so that I can be in position to share that knowledge with others. And the last few videos, I've been sharing content that starts to move into what Hilarion has taught me about the stages of ascension of consciousness that we're going through, and in fact that all beings go through as they evolve over time. And when I say all beings, we are in many ways individual manifestations fractalized from source, and we're essentially recoalescing back into source, and through that we go through sort of stages over time of evolving to do that. And the stages that he's sharing with me now, I think, deal probably more with the density that we happen to be residing in. And I would encourage you to see the last few videos that I've done on densities versus dimensions to understand more of that terminology. But that's essentially it. So I'm now in this process. Now, a lot of the content that I've channeled from him was done in 2019 and 2020. I haven't even gotten to stuff from 2021 yet. I've been peppering in a few, conversations or channeling sessions that I've done with Hilarion on topics that I think are more pertinent in terms of the timeline. So again, I'll channel something, it's from a long time ago, but obviously there's things going on in the world today, and I'm very curious about them. Sometimes he, supports the question if it's sort of pertinent. Sometimes he defers, but essentially I did ask a question about a lot of stuff going on in the news this week, and it happens to match the concept of stages of ascension. So we got into it a bit. So I wanted to share it because it's very timely now. So the question is, what is the purpose of the Ukrainian-Russian war? And the answer that I got is, there are other items to discuss than dramas, which are nothing more than tests and choice points. So that's, pretty typical. So what he did say is, broadly, the time for love and compassion is here. For you here, and, I'm sorry, I mistyped that. So broadly, the time for love and compassion is here. For the intention with gratitude. That doesn't make sense. I probably mistyped it as I was typing up my scribbled notes from when I channel. So even small actions of gratitude, such as helping a bug stuck inside your house to the outside, or holding space for others, has a huge impact on the collective consciousness of humanity and Earth's vibrational frequency. So again, anytime we are sending off frequencies, really, which emanate from our intention and from our emotions, that are at a higher vibrational frequency energetically, it's going to have an effect of causing other beings around you to start to vibrate at a similar frequency, and it's done through what's called a resonance effect. And resonance is probably best understood, and you can probably see it best when you think about, let's say, the concept of glass that is, say, matching the resonance of somebody singing, and the glass will shatter because it's starting to resonate at the same vibrational frequency of the sound that's coming across, or possibly harp strings. If you sort of pluck a certain chord of a harp string, the other chords of, let's say, other harps that are in the area will start to vibrate as well. So again, when you are simply giving off certain vibrational frequencies, whether high or low, it's going to have an impact on other beings around you, and you can really affect the vibrational frequencies of others. And you might see that play out in your own families as energies get hot, or if they get, very loving. So he goes on to say that, so obviously the time is here for love and compassion. Now he said, to answer your question, there are multiple answers on multiple dimensions. So this is pretty interesting. From a first dimension consciousness perspective, many beings are simply focused on survival and safety. This simple fact strains the physical, emotional, mental, and etheric bodies. It often rewires the human brain and central nervous system and can shut down pathways or portals to the upper chakras. So if you kind of think about almost Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so when he was telling me this, that's what I was thinking of, is that, obviously a lot of individuals who are in the situation in the war right now are very much just thinking about their survival and safety. And that's going to have effect on, how they kind of view the world in this moment and other humans in this moment. From a second dimension consciousness perspective, the emotional bodies are triggered from past lives in which similar energies played out. Those energies rise to the surface of the consciousness, while simultaneously, new energies are developing that have the potential to be trapped in the auric field and burned into the etheric blueprint for the soul. Each being will have a different series of lessons and will make different choice points on how to think, feel, and act. So what that does for me is it correlates the fact that the second dimension is very much connected to the emotional bodies. And so obviously, from a first dimensional perspective, it's very much about safety and survival. From a second dimension perspective, it's very much about kind of the emotions that are playing out during this period of time. He goes on to say that from a third dimension consciousness perspective, a group of beings holding opposing dualistic energies are fighting over territory and resources based on fears driven from within. There also exists hidden motives which they alone are aware of. One is to protect corporate interests, the other is to end corruption and a vision for continued control over humanity. On a fourth dimension perspective, energies are impacting or controlling beings, leaders, and decision makers on all sides. This is a physical manifestation of an ancient fight that is still ongoing. It's a fight for the conscious control of humanity through fear versus allowing for the veils to be lifted to humanity's true potential and rightful place as creator beings. So what that implies to me is that so third dimension is kind of like what we see it for what it is. And, we're getting doses of different potential perspectives, I think, on the news, if you happen to be watching it. Usually what I find is that there's more behind the scenes that we're not privy to understanding. Either we're not told or literally people just don't understand. There's a lot of history there. So that's sort of playing out in front of us. But it seems that from a fourth dimensional perspective, there might be energies, I would think more dark energies that are sort of impacting or influencing the beings from another density and sort of influencing decision making that's going on in our third density reality. And they may not even be aware of the impulses that are influencing them to drive certain decision making, which is unfortunate. He goes on to say that on a fifth dimension, this situation is a necessary cleansing or releasing of trapped energy, and for all beings to come to accept the dark shadows within themselves, allowing for the heart chakras to open and eventually come to a place of unity consciousness. Energies from other timelines and past circumstances are circling back around, allowing for potential new choices to be made by the souls undergoing the tests and the challenges. So what this says for me from a fifth dimension perspective is that, there's possibly beings who are kind of entrenched in the situation who possibly might have had similar situations playing out in past lives. Maybe they were also a part of a war in the past, maybe other side, on opposite sides or something like that. And essentially the energy of that past war sort of circled back around. And I'll put a link in the video that talks about how energies can circle back around through basically a sort of a torsion field of polarized energies. But essentially that's what he's implying here, is that that's playing out, and it's allowing for maybe the individual souls that were involved in the last, maybe past situation, to be faced with the same situation and allow for a new set of choices to be made during this time. Not sure how it's playing out for each of them, but it seems like what he said before, each soul has a choice of how to think, feel, and act during this period of time. So he goes on to say that on a sixth dimension perspective, all souls involved are playing out a series of contracts they made prior to incarnation to help consciousness evolve. It's their choice. All of you, as fractals of Source, elected to experience this. So take a step back and meditate on what that might be. This is not to suggest that you should not hold space or compassion for all beings involved, but understand that their higher selves signed up to experience the situation. All of you are not victims to the war, or for that matter, any challenging situation that you encounter. So this is probably a tougher one to come to grips with as human, as being human, is that, this is a kind of tough war, is like the toughest situation that you see kind of play out in humanity. But this is an interesting perspective. He's saying that on the sixth dimension, many of these beings that are going through it, who are actively involved in it, actually elected to have that experience, either to teach or to learn, but ultimately to help with the consciousness evolution. So this goes back to the fact that, maybe some are choosing to take exit points in this incarnation, to allow for a swelling up of love in humanity overall, so that humanity as a sort of a species, as a collective consciousness, evolves through that process. He goes on to say that regardless of the purpose, remember it is just an illusion of consciousness. That is not always easy to understand or even accept when your human self is going through the experience, either directly impacted through challenging events or observing them from a distance. None of it is real. The question is how you will choose to think, feel, and act as a result of the occurrences, which are the reflection or mirror of what is within you. Will you judge or forgive? Will you fear or hold completion and gratitude? Will you fight others because you believe yourselves to be separate from them? Or will you let go of resistance and succumb to the realization that you are all one energy consciousness field, one source? And that's pretty much where he left it. So I thought that was an interesting way to answer my question. I was thinking I might get something more possibly third dimensional of like the scoop of what's going on. But what essentially he did was kind of unpacked different perspectives of what's going on from a consciousness perspective at all these different sort of dimensions. So I hope that at least gives you some level of understanding to see a broader vision of what could be playing out here, more than perhaps what you're being shown on the day-to-day news. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. And in the next video, I'm going to start getting into the first stage of Ascension as it was taught to me by Hilarion. Thanks. Bye.